All right, guys, we're doing it. This might be Dylan. This might be a bigger sin than like a December mock draft. This is pretty. This is egregious. People should probably unsubscribe. To be honest, at least one person will, and I think that's fair.
This
53
is
man
the
roster prediction in on Cinco de Mayo. On Cinco de Mayo,
y-
man.
yeah, roster prediction in May is like a mock draft in September. Like we haven't seen
Yeah,
anything
yeah,
happen yet. Like we're not in the business of, trying to be correct here. We're just trying to give a rough, I guess, outline of where we think the roster stands, where we could possibly add some people. So it's going to be an interesting exercise, but it's necessary.
yeah. That's the idea. The idea, like, we're gonna give our 53, but the idea is now that the draft is come and gone for agency, who's here? Where are the competition spots? Where are spots where UDFA's could make it? Where are spots where vets who come down to cut down day could make it? Spots are feeling good. Spots we're not feeling as nicey. Stuff like that. So that's kind of more of the idea, to give an overview of the roster, more so than trying to make an accurate prediction. But now that you look at this roster post draft, are you feeling nicey, or what's got you feeling nicey and what's got you feeling like not so nicey?
I definitely feel okay. I mean, I think the way too early 2026 mocks that use the reverse Super Bowl odds and the NFL power rankings post draft, I think those are not giving the Jets any benefit of the doubt. And understandably so. I think after you've seen the Jets after the last couple seasons, it makes sense to not want to give them the benefit of the doubt. Me, I lean more towards they're probably going to finish better than third worst or even dead last in the NFL. I don't see those being the outcomes. Obviously, things could go horribly wrong, but I think we're more in the middle of the pack. We have talent on this roster. Like, let's not we don't need to sugarcoat it and play Homer the whole pod and like pretend like everybody is so great. But I don't think that it's as bad as we are projecting it out to be, or the media certainly is projecting it out to be. Plenty of things to like, some things to dislike, and we'll get into it, like our tight end four, who we both ironically mentioned off stream. So, yeah, I mean, all in all, I would say this is probably a middle of the pack team. And with the middle of the pack strength of schedule, I found out today, 16th in the NFL, why can't we exceed expectations slightly and be a 7+ win team?
Yeah, and that's kind of that's kind of where you set the bar, right? Is, can you get better from last year while getting younger and cheaper? I guess would be a step in the right direction. And then obviously you gotta, NFL pretty much says you got to make the playoffs within your first 3 years or so. And I think that's a fair expectation, because making the playoffs isn't a crazy accomplishment unless you're the Jets, I guess. But oh, there's not a foul. That is, oh my god, Knicks playoff basketball is stressing me out. Down
Oh,
by
you're a
one though.
Knicks fan? You're a Knicks
Still
fan?
game one, baby. Still game one.
I'm rooting
Yeah.
for
Oh
him. I
yeah.
don't like Boston. I'm not a Knicks fan, but I don't like Boston.
No.
So
Who? No. Yeah, nobody likes Boston. Yeah. By Zach Kuntz, I put him in the thumbnail. By the way, I'm really leaning into the egregiousness of the 53 man in May. But Zach Kuntz is on mine, because I don't know who else would be there for tight end four.
yep.
But with quarterbacks, I got them keeping three: Fields, Taylor. I put Brady Cook in there. Now, to me, it's pretty cut and dry. I think either they keep two in Fields and Taylor. If they keep three, I think it's going to be Brady Cook. I don't think AJ Martinez or a veteran off the scrap heap is going to be worth rostering. I think Brady Cook, to me, is essentially like a seventh round pick. Like, he's just going to be there if they want to keep a third guy on the team. And if they don't, he'll at least be on the practice squad. So I got three quarterbacks on mine.
Yeah, that was a tough one for me. I always try to start with three because then that gives me one position to pull from as I'm trying to
Right.
find an extra wide receiver, an extra defensive lineman. I always say, oh, well, I kept three quarterbacks. Let me knock the third one off. I ended up doing that in mine. I only kept two. Now, I understand you could do the whole emergency quarterback rule. So
Mhm.
maybe he'll be like the inactive or the emergency third quarterback. I think it would be Brady Cook. But I also feel like right now that quarterback might not be on the roster, and it could be a veteran off the scrap heap. Like, this team brought in Teddy Bridgewater during their playoff push over their young guy who was their quarterback three on the bench, in Hendon Hooker. So I'm not,
True.
entirely sold on Brady Cook. I think he's a fine player. But I kept two, Fields and Taylor. And I think if you have to even go past those, the season is up in smoke and up in flames, and we'll be doing those September mock drafts anyway. So I kept two.
Oh yeah, I don't think they roster Brady Cook because as an emergency QB3, he would be any better than any other emergency QB3. My hope is he plays really well in preseason, so they feel like he might get poached, and they just end up keeping him. But yeah, I know a hot take on Brady Cook. He seems like a tough, athletic dude whose arm doesn't wow me. And all right, we'll see what he's got. The blockers for the quarterback, offensive line. I kept 9, so Fashanu, Simpson, Tittman, AVT, Membu are the starters. Looking at their depth chart, to me, I think Carter, Warren, and Myers have a really good shot to stick as the Warren is the best backup tackle or the least bad backup tackle. And then Myers is your backup center who I would almost consider him a lock at this point. And then I did plug in Max Mitchell and Xavier Newman, just because those were the those were the 8th and 9th guys. No better way to say it. And I think with Newman, okay, that's definitely a spot where I think maybe a cut down guy, or maybe if it's vegan the UDFA, that's a spot. And Max Mitchell, like, so to me, the last 2 offensive line spots are anyone's game. Now Max Mitchell does have versatility that he can play 4 positions, but I don't think he can play any of them well, even for a backup level. Like when he's out there, the run game is almost impossible when Max Mitchell is on the field. It's staggering how much he's regressed. It sucks. I don't know how much of it is the blood clots, because I don't know, man. I remember their rookie year, like I remember feeling okay about Mitchell, Ruckert, and Clemens in limited roles, and those guys have just kind of fallen off. But those would be my 9. But I think the last 2 spots could easily be taken by randoms.
So I had 10. I was 9 for 9 with you. I was surprised you didn't keep Chukwuekorofo for. I know he's only making 1.4
Oh
million.
shoot! No! I messed up.
Oh, okay. It was an
I messed
oversight.
up.
Okay, I wasn't sure because I know he's making only 1.4.
I got him
So
and Mitchell's out. I got him and Mitchell's out.
there you go.
I
Yeah.
I
Okay.
had
So
it in reverse. Yeah.
that would have been what I did if I was
Yeah.
you keeping 9, but I had to
Mhm.
keep 10 because I wasn't sure what the hell to do with Max Mitchell, Xavier Newman, and then I put in parentheses Leander Wiegand, or however you pronounce his name, because you put it out on your show, and I did Gus Toon's podcast over the weekend, Atlantic Flight Pod, and I said the same exact thing you did, dude. Follow the money, especially in UDFA's. Like, you give a guy $250,000 guaranteed, there's a good chance that he's making your roster in some capacity. And I don't know if that's going to be cutting him and hoping he makes it back to their practice squad via the international pathway program. I don't know if he's under certain different circumstances when he is switched over to the practice squad, because if he gets to skip waivers and end up on the practice squad because he's international pathway, obviously that would be huge. But I don't think that's the case. So he's the tweener for me, and he would be the 11th, but I kept 10, being the same ones that you did, plus Chooks Okorafor. I would view him, Okorafor, and Myers as your top 2 backups. And
Right.
then I tried to go in order, and I put Carter Warren as the 3rd best backup. Max Mitchell and Xavier Newman, you could really give or take either one. Those are your last guy, and I wouldn't be surprised if, they didn't do anything with Mitchell as far as his contract, but they did give Xavier Newman the tender, so they at least
Mhm.
did something this regime monetarily to Newman. So that would put Mitchell on the bubble for me with the German Wiegand.
Yeah. So I guess the problem with my 9, now that I'm looking at it, would be Newman is the only backup who's played guard. So that's not going to work.
Because Myers is a center specific.
Right. So that's not going to work. So that is Max Mitchell's path, because he could also play guard, I
Mm-hmm.
suppose. All right. So yeah, now I'm not so sure. Maybe that's a spot you keep 10. I'll have to see if there's a spot where will be willing to. I think when we get the defensive line, I might be willing to trade one to keep an offensive lineman,
I was just
because
gonna
I
say
kept 10.
defensive line and wide receiver, I feel like, are the next 2 big groupings of high volume players. So like if you kept 6 wide receivers, maybe you could take the 6th one down for a 10th O line.
Right.
We can go to wide receiver if you want. I kept 5.
Do it.
I don't know how many you kept. I got Garrett, and I'm trying to go in order again as far as how I see the room. Garrett, Josh Reynolds, number 2, Malachi Corley, number 3, Tyler Johnson, number 4, Arian Smith, number 5. Alan Lazard is catching passes from Aaron Rodgers.
I think that would make sense. I
Mhm,
have Lazard making it, but if he doesn't, my 5 would be the same. I have Wilson, Reynolds, Lazard, Corley, Smith, Johnson, and I think Lazard and Johnson are the questionable ones, but Wilson's going to make it. I think Reynolds is almost a lock just because I think he is wide receiver too. He can catch better than Lazard. He knows the system better than the rookies. I mean, it's not great that he's wide receiver too, but I think he is. And then when it gets down to Johnson, I actually didn't roster a wide receiver, a special team specific wide receiver, because I did that in 2 other rooms. And I don't
mhm,
want to roster more than 2 players who just play special teams, just because with this team, like I'd rather roster like McGregor on the defensive line who could develop into a situational pass rusher. Like I'd rather roster guys who have potential to be impactful players elsewhere, since we're not exactly trying to win a damn Super Bowl. And like we can figure that out. You can figure out your special teams. And I do think Smith will play special teams. I think Arian Smith can be on the coverage unit, and maybe Corley can return, you know, kicks sometimes or be the second guy back there. So that would
mhm.
be, yeah, I kept 6, assuming Lazard is here. But
Right. So if
if
they
he
move off
goes,
Lazard, you can add your 10th wide offensive lineman, no problem.
yeah, I would probably do that rather than add another receiver.
Yeah, I wouldn't take whatever's left.
Uh,
Like Xavier Gibson, I feel like would be the next man up, and I wouldn't want that over the potential of a 10th offensive lineman. I just sent this tweet to you if you wanted to pull it up while I'm talking, but
sure.
I think last month, yeah, March 29th, Jeremy Fowler tweeted out the lengthy incentive package for Josh Reynolds, and
Okay.
it can earn him up to 2.25 million this season, and he's already due a base of 2.75. So that to me proves that he's going to be in their plans. I know some people don't have him making the 53-man roster, but at
He's got to be.
2.75 base, you're already making more than Lazard and both of your rookies probably combined. So the incentive package is an extra 250K if he plays 35% of the snaps. He's going to do that as wide receiver
Yeah,
too.
he'll hit that
So
unless he gets a bad injury. He'll hit that.
Right. It's almost like you play 4 full games and then you could still suffer an injury and still get it. 3 touchdowns is 200K, 5 touchdowns is 350, 7 touchdowns is 500K. So he could get anywhere from 3 to 5 touchdowns as wide receiver too.
Yeah.
200 yards is 125K, 350 is 450,000, 500 yards is 600,000, and 650 is 750,000. So if he gets anywhere between 350 and 500 yards, probably about wide receiver 2A or 2B production. And then the highest incentive is 60 catches is $750,000. So he can get 45 catches and make another extra 600K. So all in all, it's looking like he's probably going to be a $4 to $5 million receiver when it's all said and done. I think he's going to hit quite a few of those incentives. So I would say Josh Reynolds is sticking around for at least this season. He's been in both Denver and Detroit, where Mooj
Right.
and Glenn come from. He's known for his blocking prowess. He's been in the system like you mentioned. So there's just too many positives for him to put him over Alan Lazard for me.
Yeah, and again, it's not even about him, it's about the rest of the room. He's basically like if Alan Lazard had better hands. That's basically what, Josh Reynolds is. He's a wide receiver 3, like production wise, but when you throw it to him, there's a better chance he catches the ball. And he's just been banged up. It is what it is. Yeah. What do you think would be the order of target share, like top 5 in target share? Because I'm thinking Garrett, and then, well, I guess I'll say receptions, because I know targets, like running backs catch a lot of their targets because it's short A dot. But I think in catches it'll go Garrett, Brees, Mason. I don't know, maybe Garrett, Brees, Mason Taylor, Josh Reynolds, and then maybe I'm hoping either Corley or Smith over like Lazard or Tyler Johnson is kind of the way I see it.
Yeah,
But
I would say Garrett,
Reynolds is
Brees.
probably higher than that.
I would say Garrett, Brees, Josh Reynolds, then Mason Taylor, and then it gets scary hours. And
Yeah.
I'm gonna say Stone Smart. as number 5.
Oh gosh, that's hey, look, once you get past those first couple, it's open season, man. So
Yeah, after 4, it's a huge drop off, and like that pool, like you said, Corley, Johnson, Smith, Smart, even Ruckert with the familiarity with Justin Fields. Like there's all 4 or 5 of them lobbying for the 5th one, so it's definitely scary hours after 4.
yeah, it's not the most fun competition to have the ranking those guys this year. We're gonna be a run heavy team.
And it
Okay, so
should
we
be Garrett
did,
and Brees. Those should be number 1 and 2 in my opinion.
yeah. I mean, I think it will be. It was the year before. Obviously, when you had Devontae, he warrants a high target share, but Brees is, I think has the most catches in the NFL by a running back over the last 2 years. So
Mm.
I expect him to continue that trend. I hope they try to push the ball down the field a little bit more to Brees because I think he's got some like he's had some nice plays on wheel routes, and then they just never really tried him much again. But he should be definitely impactful in the passing game. So we got quarterback, we did offensive line, we did wide receiver. Let's finish offense. So I actually have 4 running backs technically. I have Hall, Allen, Davis, and then Nwangwu is technically a running back, but I rostered him as the returner because he's got a good kick return resume in the NFL, and they stuck him out there one game, and he brought one back to the house against Seattle. So I'm rostering him as the returner, and Xavier Gibson is off the team.
Yep,
And the
that's
other
how
3
I
are
had
pretty
it.
chalk.
Yeah, I had it same way. I thought about Donovan Edwards for a second, but the special teams upside of Nwangu and the fact that he actually flashed for us last year. Shout out to Phil Savage keeping the lights on by
Yeah.
making that roster move midweek that nobody really paid any attention to, and then it ended up paying dividends in the game. So, yeah, I kept with the same 4. And as I'm like reading this and doing my math again, I'm on the fly having to switch something at a different position. So we might not both have tight end 4.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, the running back is pretty straightforward between the first 3. I would be very surprised if like Brees Hall, obviously, it would be if he was traded.
Hmm.
And then and then Braylon Allen, I feel like is a lock because again, he would have trade value. You wouldn't cut him. And Isaiah Davis, I like Isaiah Davis, man. I like the running back room a lot. I
Yeah.
think there's a good variance of skill sets, and Isaiah Davis obviously can play special teams. And he was, if it's 3rd and 18, and you need someone to get 10 yards to give you a
10.
cushion for your punter, Isaiah Davis is going to clean up, man. He averaged like 8 yards a carry last year, or whatever, because that's all he did.
The
They
worst
give him
run
those.
situations and they handed it to
Yeah,
him every damn time. Yeah,
here you
that's
go.
that's a tough one, but like it shows. Like follow what the moves were. They didn't
Right.
sign a running back in free agency, even a low-level guy. They didn't draft one. They only used one UDFA on Donovan Edwards, and to be honest, Donovan Edwards was probably not even better than Isaiah Davis
No,
based
I don't think
on
so.
everything that we've known. And I mean, maybe 2022 or 2023 Donovan Edwards, you'd be like, oh wow, this is really intriguing. But there was a disconnect in 2024, and all of a sudden the league just didn't view him as, he was a cover athlete for the game college football. And I'm not saying that means you're a great NFL talent, but people were looking at you as if you could have been something
Right.
at one
You don't
point.
do that if you think he's going to go undrafted.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's interesting because it was also Quinn Ewers on the cover who went in the 7th round, but I digress. Yeah. Chalk with the backfield with the running backs.
Cool. Tight ends. Zach Kuntz, baby. He's not going to be on the team. But for the for the players they have now, I think this is definitely the prime spot where I'm looking at a veteran. Like, who is that random dude they added at the last summer from the Titans? They added that random tight end. Forgetting his name now. Anthony something. Jets sign Titans.
There's a
Tight
Neil
end.
Johnson was a tight end we signed, I think.
No, don't tell
I
me
remember at
Stone
one point we had like
Smart.
5 or
Anthony
6.
Fursker. Anthony Fursker.
Oh, Ferkser. Geez.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was before
So
the Bates experiment.
yeah, we need our next Anthony Fursker, baby. But I think that would be a spot to add somebody who could block a little bit because you got Mason Taylor. Love it. Should be tight end 1. Jeremy Rucker, I'm hoping can at least be a serviceable blocking tight end 2. Then Stone Smart. Like, you're not going to roster Stone Smart and Zach Kuntz, 2 guys who are just glorified big receivers who can't block at all, who you're trying to develop a passing repertoire out of. I don't think you roster two players like that, even though Kuntz can play special teams, unless they just really see upside and or they're trying to double their bet on that type of player, and like one of you will be good. But that would be at a massive hindrance to, I think, your run game. And if you're trying to play 12 personnel, I think you have to roster another tight end that is capable of blocking, or and maybe someone who has experience playing some fullback too, because I know that at least the last coaching staff was hesitant to really give that job to Ruckert. So if they see that in a similar light, I think, I don't think Kuntz is long for the roster. And I don't think
Yeah.
Neil Johnson is a solution either.
No, no, I didn't even give thought to Neil Johnson. I kept 3, and like I said, I just had to do quick numbers on the fly. I thought I had 25 offensive players. I had 26. So it came down to, do I want to keep this player? Do I want to keep Zach Kuntz, or do I want to keep Eric Watts? And I chose this player and Eric Watts over Zach Kuntz. So right now I'm keeping 3: Mason Taylor, Jeremy Rucker, Stone Smart. But I agree with you wholeheartedly. This is the position where camp cuts come around, and a 27, 28-year-old tight end falls by the wayside and gets cut down when they go from 90 to 53. I'd love to attack it. I assume you don't have this position on your offense, but I kept Andrew Beck instead of Zach Kuntz. It was one of the first
Ooh.
signings that the new regime made, and kind of told us that they were going to prioritize fullback. And we're going to do the Nick Bawden thing again with Andrew Beck, and I'm fully on board with it right now over Zach Kuntz.
Yeah, I would say so. For me, Zach Kuntz is penciling in a fourth tight end because I think they would roster 4. If who knows, but if they're going to be similar. But I know the Detroit Lions did use a lot of 12 personnel. But if I'm betting player for player, yeah, I would say Andrew Beck has a higher chance of making it than Zach Kuntz. So that's an interesting one. Yeah, maybe we will roll with a fullback. We'll try and make it work again. Nick Bawden had his moments. So
And the
that's
outcry
the
when he was cut for Rodgers to come
yeah,
back.
yeah,
He lost his Christmas paycheck. How are his kids ever going to get toys?
yeah. The fake outrage for that
Even
one
though
was
Rodgers made sure that he got paid by the team before doing any of those moves. But
yeah, like Rodgers isn't a sociopath. He's just old and his legs
no,
don't really work anymore. It's like it's
no.
not he's not Hitler.
And
Um
completely off topic, because we're switching from offense to defense now. There's a certain rookie defensive player who keeps asking for retired numbers on his current franchise. And speaking of Rodgers, a Hall of Famer who had the blessing of one of 4 numbers retired by this entire franchise, still decided to say, hey, you know what, man? I'm going to go and change my number to 8. So, Abdul Carter, bro, just find a number that's not retired. Like, just find a number that's not retired. Sorry, Phil Simms didn't want to give it to you. Sorry, Lawrence Taylor, excuse me, told you to F off, basically. Like, just find a new number. You shouldn't even have to ask at this point.
Abdul Carter. That's
Like, what have you
I
done to deserve the number? I don't know. Old man yelling at clouds.
so did he get it or
No,
did he say
Taylor
no?
LT told him no on 56. I think Phil Simms said yes, but the family said no.
Oh,
And
he's trying to poach multiple different retired numbers.
this is the second number he's tried to
Yeah,
get now. And it's like, because 56 was obviously,
oh man.
he's the position Lawrence Taylor played, and then 11 was his college number. It's like, dude,
Yeah.
just find a new number. And that's what happens. Franchises retire a lot of numbers that are deemed as like nice, high looking, good looking picks and or numbers. So that's just what happens. The Jets only have 4, so we have all the numbers open in the world.
Yeah, we have some openings. So let's look at our defensive situation and see whose number is going to be retired. Actually, if you could pick one player who is currently on this Jets roster who will have their number retired, if you could only bet on one, who would you bet on?
Sauce number 1. I think that would be the best one, because he's already gotten 2 all pros in his rookie contract. I genuinely see more than 2 in his future. So if you're talking about a 4 or 5 time all pro player for this franchise, yeah, I would say it's him. I don't know if Revis's number is retired. I think it's going to be soon, and he'd be the 5th. So it's Namath, Maynard, Klecko, and somebody else from the Sack Exchange, but Revis, and then I think Sauce would be the next ones that I would add.
Yeah, probably Garrett, maybe just because. from a Jets perspective, I think if he signs an extension, like
Yes,
he'll
yes, he
have
would have to play his extension out. Yeah.
right, yeah, of course. So if he signs a 4-year extension and plays that out, he's going to rank very high in like Jets career receiving, because a lot of we had really great receivers a long time ago. I mean, Don Maynard, when he retired, was like one of the best receivers all time at the
Oh, they were
time of
doing
his
special
retirement.
things in the '60s. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I would like to
Welker,
see them dual retire Will McDonald and Mark Gastineau. That would be really cool.
hey, Will McDonald is good.
You said
And
his number.
99 is such a clean number, man.
It's such a clean number. I love it with the legacy look too, because it's now like looking like Gastineau from the front, and then you
Yeah.
get McDonald on the back. I love it. Best of both worlds.
There we go. Hey, McDonald, he's just got another 100 sacks or so to go, and he'll be in there. But it actually is pretty crazy. I mean, even total career sacks, like Quinnen playing out his contract is going to be high. Even McDonald, if he just keeps getting 9 or so a year, is going to be high.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not a lot of longevity at certain positions we haven't had in a while. Mason Taylor, he's going to be high at tight end if he just
Yeah, we did the
has a
tight end thing
normal
before.
career.
Yep. Yep.
It's pretty wild. So defensive line, here's where I would probably trade in somebody. I'll see who I'd want to trade in. I probably would agree with you that Kuntz over or fullback over Kuntz, but I still don't know if you only keep 3 tight ends. Can Beck play tight end?
He was listed as fullback / tight end when they signed him.
So maybe instead of the tight end that moonlights as fullback, you have the fullback that moonlights as a tight end. Okay, then that works for me. Okay, then you kind of running back or fullback / tight end. You have 4 of them. All right, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
So no Kuntz. Defensive line, I have 10. So I have 5 edges in Johnson, McDonald, Barron, Watson, McGregor. Clemens cut in his 4 million or whatever. And then interior, I have Williams, Quinnen, Derek Nottie, Leonard Taylor, Byron Cowart, and Fatorma Molba, the UDFA. So I got a long list of defensive linemen here.
I like this. We have a little bit of difference. I have Michael Clemens instead of Braden McGregor, just because I do think they're going to give him 1 more year, even though I disagree with it wholeheartedly. I have a feeling they're going to give him 1 more year. But I wouldn't be opposed to them saying, hey, we like McGregor for the same reasons we like Clemens, and we think he can do it a little bit better for a lot cheaper. So I'm totally on board there. And then I have Fedarian Mathis as the interior player over Byron Cowart is the one that you kept. So I have Mathis over Cowart. I guess I don't really have any hard points or reasonings. These were one of the first signings. Again, him and Jamin Davis were the first signings that the new regime made. Or no. The Phil Savage regime kind of made these moves right in the end of the season. So
Right.
there's not like a ton of research based on picking Fedarian Mathis, although I do think the 2nd round pedigree from a couple years ago gives him a boost. I guess I haven't done enough work on Cowart to feel one way or the other about him or Jay Tufele. So I just picked Fedarian Mathis based on exposure.
Yeah, well,
But I do
Tufele
have
was
Fatorma Malba as my UDFA. Sorry.
no, yeah, I like Fatorma Malba as the like he can just kind of simmer year 1, and then maybe he takes over Nadi's role in year 2 as that undersized run defending tackle. Cowart, I actually did. It's amazing with Twitter, man. You could just type in a player's name and you could just get like, you get whatever. Maybe it's 60 reps, but it's that's better than a PFF number, right? So you get a little idea. Cowart was decent. With the I want to say it was the Chicago Bears he most recently played with. This was like a couple of months ago that I watched it, and it stuck in my mind. He was decent last year. Now, before that, he did like nothing for a while. He was pretty decent last year. Tefele was god awful. That is just the next like whatever like Fotu kind of guy that's just not even gonna make it. Mathis, I don't have a hot take on, but Cowart was okay last year. Like he was a rosterable defensive tackle. He's kind of like a Solomon Thomas, right? Like he's okay. He's your 4th defensive tackle. Nothing to write home about. But I'm really interested to see what Leonard Taylor's role is in this defensive interior room. I don't know. You probably don't want to have him next to Quinnen on 1st or 2nd down, but I just think he's probably the 2nd most talented defensive tackle on the roster.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see the deployment of Noddy, Taylor, Mulba if he makes the team. Like, who is going to end up being that guy? Because I don't foresee a situation where they want to go light and put an extra edge and like kick Jermaine
Right.
inside or do something like that. Not even kick Michael Clemens inside. I feel like they want their large edges. So yeah, that the deployment of the defensive line is going to be intriguing, and it's going to look a lot different. Like I don't anticipate 60, or I do anticipate players having 60+% of the snaps played. Like Quinton Williams, I don't think he's ever like eclipsed 70 snaps for a long period of time until they desperately needed him. So I think that's going to be more of a trend is their starters play starters and then their backups play backup reps like 25-30%.
Yeah, I mean, and I think and the depth isn't as good as it was too, like under Saleh. There was
Mhm.
legitimate players where it's like, okay, JFM is worth playing 50 per like Quentin Jefferson. Like you had multiple waves of guys that were worth having out there. Not as much the case on the edge. I think McDonald Johnson and I would say Barron are locks just because Barron's a 5th round pick. Like even if he sucks, he's going to make it the first year. It's just as a draft pick.
Mhm.
Um, and I definitely don't see Barron, especially in this system, being a player who can play inside and out. Honestly, he was a little light against the run just as a collegiate edge his last year. I know he's got a pretty big frame, but to me, that at 260 pounds, who's you're hoping he gets better as an edge run defender, kicking inside to me is probably not in his cards. So he is like the backup to Will McDonald is what Barron is right now. I see it. He is your pipeline situational pass rusher who kind of had a 5th round grade, take him in the 5th round. Cool. Clemens, yeah, you're right. I mean, we said it all last summer when we put him on our predictions, and it's like, yeah, we don't like this, but it was clearly happening last year. Like he was going to make the team based on the coaching staff, and he was getting all the first team reps in practice and all the first team reps in
Mhm.
preseason. This year, we have no idea. Now, I think stylistically, like, yeah, he has the frame of the type of edge that Aaron Glenn likes. I just, man, like him and Kinlaw last year were just the mental part of the game, just being so lost. Like he was a net negative to where I'm like, I don't even care. Throw Eric Watts or anyone against the wall over Clemens and save that couple $1,000,000. But we shall see, man. And he's kind of an older prospect too, where I think he's like 27. So I don't know. It might just be this is who he is, you know?
Yeah, I don't foresee him getting a second contract from the Jets, even a 1-year small time deal based on this year's production. I don't see the future with Michael Clemens, and that's why, to your point, I could totally get on board with them saying, "Hey, we're going to go younger, cheaper, and probably not that much of a talent drop off to Braden McGregor, and we feel like we can get all the same things from Clemens out of a player like him." So, yeah, I'm totally on board with that. I think it's going to be cool to see of the UDFAs last year, how many of them stick on again this year because there was what 3 or 4 last year. I have
Yeah.
only 2 of them making it in Watson Taylor, but then you add a new one in Mulba, so you're kind of keeping the D line UDFA pipeline going, and hopefully some of these guys can stick on for the future. Just real quick on Barron, I watched his game against Louisville probably like
Okay.
an hour ago. Dude, yeah, man. No, this is a Connor Rogers term I've heard. No sand in the pants in the run game. He just doesn't bring it. And like his lower half is really small. So like when I'm
Yeah.
watching him in pass rush reps, like he's like big, he's like 260, but it's all like upper half and like big arms and stuff. Like his legs are kind of
Yeah, he's
skinny.
like
So
Johnny
like
Bravo.
yeah, yeah, like literally, like, how are you driving your leverage against offensive tackles to try to, create that power? And I felt like his speed to power rushes weren't that great. He didn't have a ton of pass rush moves. So like he's a really raw prospect. And
He's
I
got a
mean,
quick first step and he's
yes,
got
no,
long arms. So those
yeah,
are two tools, traits to work with, you know?
yeah. The background isn't always great either. I mean, 4 schools in a matter of I think it was like a year and a half, because he left Tennessee. He committed to Ole Miss, and then he flipped his commitment from Ole Miss to Louisville, and then he got kicked out of Louisville for or no, Tennessee kicked him out for bragging about his NIL. He committed to Ole Miss, flipped his commitment to
They kicked him out for
um,
bragging about getting money?
yeah, well, he was in the locker room telling players that they needed to ask for more money in their NIL deals
Good.
based on what him and his
This is a man of the people. He was
yes.
unionizing and they nipped him in the bud.
Yes, no. So he went from Tennessee to Ole Miss to Louisville to Miami, and he never played at Ole Miss and Louisville. He just kind of like kept flipping commitments till he got to Miami. So it was definitely harder for him once he left Tennessee to stick on with the team, and that's probably how he ended up on such a bad defense like Miami. Like
Yeah,
it's rough watching Miami's defense.
that
They
was
like I
terrible.
said they played Louisville and they were up. Miami scored 52 points, and I still think they won by one possession. Like it was not a good defensive showing.
No, defense
And Tyler
was
Shuck is trash. So like it's not like he lit up the scoreboard.
that's top 40 pick Tyler Shuck to
That is
you or
starting
wherever he
QB
went, top
one.
45. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
literally number 40 to QB1 Tyler Shuck.
Yeah, and then Sanders goes in whatever round 5, and Ewers was
Yep.
supposed to be the guy last year. He's in round 6. Dylan Gabriel in
94th overall, Dylan Gabriel, dude.
in this economy. Someone
This
posted
economy.
this, and I think it's true because if you look at the war room in Cleveland, it looked like they were being held hostage when they drafted Sanders. So I think the owner stepped in, and somebody pointed out, like, I bet they drafted Gabriel to calm the owner down, like, hey, we got a developmental quarterback, it's all good. And then Sanders kept falling and falling, and then he called and he was like, no, you're drafting him too. And they drafted him.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
would have been cool with the Jets taking a shot on Sanders once he fell to that point too. Just my 2 cents. I'm not going to go ball back and forth
Of
about
course,
how
of
he's
course.
the guys. Okay, whatever. They didn't do it. It's not worth discussing. I would have, if they did it, I would have been like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Maybe he could be an average quarterback like the first one we've had since Chad Pennington. That'd be fine. But instead, we got like a fucking linebacker. I don't who cares, whatever. So now speaking of linebacker, this is where I kept 4 because it just came down to me like I wanted like other players like at defensive line, like Mulba or somebody McGregor who could be more developmental and have a role on
Mhm.
the team long term, more so than how many linebackers do we need now. Play similar to Salah in terms of nickel percentage, so it's going to be Williams and Sherwood in base. So I think you can get away with 4 linebackers and you'll be fine. So I got Williams, Sherwood, Kiko. To me, those are all locks because you're 2 starters in the draft pick. And then I snuck in my guy Zaire Barnes there because I'm not ready to completely give up on him. Zaire Barnes and Zach Kuntz,
You
baby. Come
you're
on. I
sipping
can't
the
let it go.
Kool-Aid of Zaire Barnes for sure. And that there's no problem with that. He's a complete unknown until we actually
Yeah.
see evidence that he is a bad player or a good player. Like, why
Yeah.
not keep doing the thing, right? And Salah's probably shedding a tear looking at a picture of Zaire Barnes in his bed, like Wolverine. Like, I miss this guy. This is my guy. I kept 5, and just doing revisionist history. If I was to take one from another position, this is where Vegan would come on for a fifth linebacker. I would drop down to 4, and I would just keep 11 offensive linemen because of the guarantees they paid him. I have Wood and Quincy, obviously. Kiko is my 3rd. I have Jamin Davis as my 4th, and then I picked Marcelino McCreary Ball. Just special teams versatility. I think he could probably play all 3 linebacker positions. Um, I'm sure Zaire Barnes could do all 3 linebacker positions if asked to. So Jamin Davis, I'm not exactly sure. It's more the Fedarian Mathis thing. Like I just feel like they brought him in for a reason
Darian
on a
Mathis
future
is your
steal.
Zaire Barnes for sure.
Yeah. I feel like that's kind of how it's trending out to be for
Yeah.
sure. So the 2 former Washington guys stick on with me. Kiko's the only one that sticks out to me from like a difference in size and play style perspective. Kiko is like a big linebacker, so I wouldn't be
Yeah.
surprised if they decided to swap one of these guys out for a bigger linebacker that gets cut in August. But yeah, I would say 5 for now, but I could totally get down to 4 and add to the offensive line.
Yeah, again, I totally agree in terms of they have to go light at one position and not have because that's why our predictions are always wrong because we always have a very chalk number of players when there's
Yeah.
always something weird like they open oh my gosh they only kept 3 linebackers and 7 receivers and then they add guys and it all shakes
And then
out
2
but
days later,
they're
they do the thing and they get back to
right.
the number we had, and it just looks
Exactly.
different. Yeah.
So the initial always has a wonky number, like a heavy and light number somewhere in there. That's why our predictions are always kind of futile. But yeah, so linebacker, I don't think that's a spot where a significant ad would be made. Like I think
Mm-mm.
guard, if there's somebody like who's that dude we always talk about signing who played in Minnesota and Denver, who's like mid uh
Oh, Reisner?
yeah, Dalton Rise,
Yeah.
like that level of player where it's like, okay, you're gonna pay him like really good backup money. I could see that guard. edge, I could see it. But at linebacker, I just think it's going to be kind of minimum rookie UDFA type of guys rounding out the depth of that room.
100%.
How
Maybe
many
one of the
corners did you keep?
UDFAs, Aaron Smith or Jared Bartlett. I don't know much about them, but maybe they view them over a Marcelino McCreary or a Jamin Davis or Zaire Barnes, and they say, hey, this is a guy we brought in, not the old regime. So,
Yeah, totally. I would actually argue that probably a UDFA who was added by this coaching staff and GM is probably ahead of guys like Barnes and McCreary Ball, just on the
yeah,
fact
Ty
that
goes
they
to
were
the
brought in by those
yeah,
guys.
Ty goes to the new regime edition for sure.
Correct.
Cornerbacks, I kept 6. This is the other position that I assume you have the special team specific player.
I do.
One who likes to get handsy with his coach.
Yeah.
Sauce Gardner, Brandon Stevens, Michael Carter, Azariah Thomas, Isaiah Oliver, and Chris Boyd are my 6.
We have so I had Oliver.
You didn't keep Oliver, or you put him as a safety?
I put him as a safety. I think he's making a team. So
Okay.
it kind of depends. He could be, now maybe you could just view him as like the 11th defensive back because he did play both last year. Remember they said, oh, we're going to make him a safety, but then Michael Carter got hurt. And then he was it was crazy. The Jets in a season that was lost for the longest time, they platooned Michael Carter and Oliver when Michael Carter's back was jacked up. And it's like, guys, you're out of the playoff mix. This is a young player who you have under contract for 2 more years. Put him on IR. That was one of the most bizarre things of last year. But Oliver was, he looked like a backup defensive back who's fine for the money they paid him. So, but under Wilkes, he was their starting nickel. So I don't know if Wilkes just used him more as a nickel or whatever the case may be. But he was one of my safeties. So for corner, I have Sauce, Stevens, Carter, Thomas, all locks. I did keep Chris Bryant, who's just a special teamer. Chris Boyd. Yes. Why did I say Chris Bryant? Isn't that Chicago Cub, third baseman, or used to be?
Yes.
Chris Bryant
is an athlete. Is an athlete.
He exists, not on the Jets. Chris Boyd, who's that's a Banjo's guy. Like I think Muji was like, all right, Banjo, you get one dude, you get one psychopath on special teams. Who do you want? He wanted Boyd. Okay, fine. He's the new Justin Hardy, right? Who's a corner in name only.
Yep.
And then I kept Stigers. So my quandary, my guy who's left out of the defensive back room is Bernard Converse, which he's a player where I might do the go light somewhere else to keep him because I don't know, man. That's what another thing about the Azariah Thomas pick, who I think is going to be awesome. I was really hoping, and it's not, dude. Let's be honest, it's not based on anything more than just freaking preseason. So whatever. I was really hoping that one of Stigers or JBC could kind of stick as even a mid corner opposite of Sauce. And then we could really use and we could have that solved pretty cheaply and then use other resources elsewhere. But that's kind of the nature of changing regimes because they didn't see those guys practice at all. Right. And they didn't see them play in the regular season. There's no tape on them. So with a lot of these players, like even like Corley, they probably looked at where they had him ranked coming out of the draft. Like that's probably their opinion on Corley because there's no new information. So maybe based
on whatever Sean Jefferson told them because he's the only holdover coach and he's his specialty coach. So maybe Sean Jefferson's word plus their scouting evaluation of Corley from their separate, franchises before they came here. Yeah, that's all going to play a factor. I'm mad now because I forgot Quantez in my 53. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make Isaiah Oliver a safety, and I'm just going to take down the last safety on my board, and I'm going to add Quantez. So I still have 6 corners and 4 safeties, but Isaiah Oliver is now going to be included in the list of safeties.
Yeah, I had to choose. I ended up having to choose between Stigers or JBC.
I would do the same.
I went with Stigers.
I would do the same 9 times out of 10. I feel like we've seen not that we've seen, but we've just had too much time with JBC where the Stigers thing, it's like I'm not ready to give up yet. Whereas JBC, I feel like that extra year of not really doing much is more of a reason to get rid of him.
He was like 2009 Darrelle Revis in the preseason, though. last year.
Dude, he was the
JBC.
darling. Him and who
JBC
is
was
the
nice.
guy? Who was the guy? The safety, Trey Dean. Was it
Yeah,
Trey Dean? That was the guy.
a couple years ago, Trading. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
pour one out for Trading. I think he's on the Chiefs practice squad or something. All these guys
Oh,
we
he won
cry
a
about
ring then,
getting
or no,
yeah
he didn't
getting
win a ring.
cut. Brownlee was over there, but yeah, all those guys we cry about getting cut never end up doing anything for the most part.
Funny,
Who's
right?
the guy who's still kicking around in Arizona though? Who was our receiver darling? Who's like he's okay. He's on the Cardinals now.
He's okay. That
He's
could be
okay. No,
anybody.
he's all right.
Greg Dortch.
Yeah, Greg George.
Pass me the Dorchy. Yep. Yep.
He's kicking around. He's doing stuff.
No, he's
So
actually a
who's
solid player. I think he got like
yeah,
a small time contract from Arizona. Like he's doing his thing.
respect Greg Dortch. So safety, I have 4. I
Yep.
think Cisco Moore are locks. Tony
Mhm.
Adams, the little tender thing they gave him was not cheap, and so I think he's going to make it. And then I considered Isaiah Oliver a safety, so that lined up pretty nicely for me for those
Yeah.
4.
Before that, I had obviously Oliver as a corner, and then I kept Jordan Clark as the 4th safety. I just wanted to go bloodlines, so I picked him over Dean Clark, even though I think Dean Clark might be more talented.
Yeah.
So that was it was a little bit of an oversight missing on Quantez. So I do have Oliver as my 4th safety, and I would assume one of the Clarks make it to the practice squad.
Yeah, I think okay, so who's your starting week 1 safety next to Cisco if you had to guess right now? I hope it's more. I really do.
I hope it's more, and I did a film review on Jet Nation's YouTube for him. And I came away super impressed. Like a cerebral player, he's going to be exactly what Aaron Glenn was hoping. What he got out of Brian Branch, probably on a lower scale. He's not Brian Branch to a T, but just a heads up player, great communicator, high IQ, stick his face in the fan in the run. He can play split safety. He can play single high post safety. He can play down in the box. He can play nickel and cover one and man up with a guy. So he could do a lot of damn things. And I would say week 1, it's Tony Adams, but Malachi Moore, and Azariah Thomas, like week 8, week 6, these guys are going to be on the bench. Like, how the hell is this guy on the bench? Like, we need to put
Right.
this guy in the game because when he's in the game, good things happen. So I would say it's Tony Adams week 1. But in short order, Malachi Moore and also Azariah Thomas are going to be starters.
Yeah, well, I think you could definitely make an easier case for Moore, even though he was a lower draft pick. Number one,
Mm-hmm.
he's a 5th-year college player, so he's like 2.5 years older than Azariah Thomas. Like he's
Mm-hmm.
closer in age to Tony Adams than he is to Azariah Thomas, pretty much. He's like so.
Yep.
Now maybe that lowers his ceiling, but I think it raises his immediate floor. And Tony Adams is they're stylistically opposite because Tony Adams is a RAS score god, Ashton Davis too, but the actual football part of it is not quite sticking. Where Malachi Moore is not a great athlete, but super smart, heady player. So I hope he starts right away. Maybe it's probably unfair to say, but I'd almost be disappointed if Tony Adams is the week 1 starter over Malachi Moore. But whatever it is, it's not that big of a deal. I think he'll be on the field plenty. Maybe they go to him as their dime over Oliver.
Mm-hmm.
Thomas, I
Yeah, I
think
would
has
do that. I would do
yeah,
that
I think
more
he
over
could be.
Oliver.
Yeah, why does Isaiah Oliver need to see the field over rookie? I mean, I think Parcells called those guys progress stoppers. I'm not saying I'm not saying
Okay.
you're in a full on. I'm not saying you're in a full on tank. I get it. You got to play the best guys, but I think we can walk and chew gum at the same time. Like if it's close, just put the rookie out there, and
Yeah.
let them get some reps.
Yeah. And
But I
Will
think,
Parkinson did mention a groin injury for Malachi Moore on one of
oh,
the
okay.
TOJ podcasts. So I'm not sure how
Oh,
far along in the process that is when he had it. I believe he mentioned something about possibly being a Senior Bowl guy, but the groin injury kept him out of the Senior Bowl. So if he's recovered by camp and he's able to be a full go, because you know how rookies are, as soon as they miss like 2 weeks, 3 weeks of camp with
yeah.
an injury,
4-week IR.
they're behind
Yeah.
5 months almost. It feels like they just can't play the catch up of the install at a rapid pace, let alone being a starter trying to play catch up. So if Malachi Moore is 100% ready by the opening, and I'm not saying Friday when they meet, I'm talking about August camp when they come back from the
Yeah.
40-day break. If he's able to go then at 100%, then I think the chances of him being a starter week 1 skyrocket. And then obviously if Thomas becomes a starter and Stevens plays back at safety, now you just have 6 or 7 capable bodies back there that you can really be versatile with. And I think that's not a bad thing.
Definitely not. Yeah, I didn't know that about his groin injury, so hopefully that's not a thing. Hopefully that just gets squared away. Because you're right, like then it ends up lingering into the point where we've seen that a lot of times with rookies, where they feel like if you can't catch all the way up, we're going to put you on ice and then revisit it later. I want to see these young guys play, even the UDFAs. Like the youth movement is clearly here. I think the Jets are going to have, if they cut Greg Z, they'll probably, I would argue they might have the youngest roster in the NFL when the season opens. Because Greg Z and Rogers off the books as your late 30s guys, and pretty much all the replacements they've gotten are younger, and the UDFA should make it, even their draft class is relatively young, the guys at the top specifically. So obviously special teamers, I guess who's your kicker? Because we know Morstead and Hennessy. I just penciled in Davis, the UDFA, threw him in there.
Yeah, I picked him over Zerline. The June 1 cut money with him and Clemens makes it a little too enticing to not want to explore the option.
Right.
Completely unrelated, but we're watching the Ravens transition to a 6th round kicker off Justin Tucker. So
Right.
I don't want to hear any, well, at one point Greg Zerline was really good. Yeah, like production falls off with kickers. It did with Tucker as well. Obviously the off-field allegations are just completely heinous, and that's completely separate. But when a guy's getting older and he's falling off after having some good production a couple years ago, it's sometimes best to just take the pivot point and move on. Caden Davis, you've put out the stats on Twitter. You read them in a video. I can't recite them, but it was good enough for me to say I'll save some money on the back end with Zerlo and maybe apply that to a tight end or a guard who falls by the wayside in camp cuts, and I'll take my chances with the new kicker, because what's the worst that can happen? He misses another kick in the rain against Denver and we lose. So it's
Yeah.
I'm not too worried about losing out on Greg Zerline.
Yeah, he man, I mean Greg, well look, kickers are up and down, but dude, that was a different level of where he'd come out for a 41 yarder and you were holding your breath, and the misses were not even, it's like, oh, like you
Yes.
can't find the strike zone anymore. You
Yeah.
might be done.
You
And
could
his
not go up and get a drink during the field goal because it was that like strenuous and like anxiety inducing that he was going to miss the easiest kick.
yeah, so his before that, his lowest field goal percentage was 67 in his career, and it was 59 last year. For his career, it's 82. So he was well below his average. Guess what Greg Z's longest make was last year?
Longest make 47 yards.
40. He didn't make a field goal over 40 yards last year.
What the hell? That's
So
disgusting, dude. Like, it's okay to
yeah,
be shaky after 40 and like real rough after 50, but like, dude, come on, man. Like, that's like borderline extra point is risky territory.
yeah, he was not good. Not very good. Yes, I think he might be done. And his money, like you mentioned, with Clemens and Greg Z. Now, obviously, with the June 1st thing, they can only designate 2 players as early June 1st cuts. But once June 1st comes, you can cut as many as you want and still get the June 1st situation. So that's the point of clarity there. Yeah, man. So there it is. There's our 53. Wow, almost 53 minutes on the 53.
Gotta love
Look
it.
at that, man.
How we
So
planned
you
it.
got some film review stuff going on. You're in the dark now. Both of our lights went out. So you got film review stuff going on your channel. So what have you been doing? I know you did Moore and you did Smith, right? So far?
Yeah, I did Malachi Moore on the 1st of the month. I did Arian Smith first because I thought he was the most polarizing. Then I did Malachi Moore. I have Azariah Thomas. As we're talking about this, it's up. As people are watching this tomorrow morning, it'll be up as well. I put Azariah Thomas on. I just started doing the Tyler Barron, which is probably going to include more Tennessee snaps than it does Miami, which kind of tells you what his 2024 season looked like. And then I'm going to try to get into some of the UDFAs, Mulba, maybe Peyton Page, depending on what I like of his film, just because DT is a dire need. I might even do one of the linebackers just because, like we mentioned, there's a chance they could stick on. And I'll probably end up doing one of the wide receiver UDFAs, maybe Quentin Skinner from Kansas. Whatever the comments kind of suggest, I'll go with it. So trying something new. Glenn and I are going to be doing a little separate content for now. He'll be doing the weekly shows and everything. I'll be doing the film reviews and other small content. I'm sure he'll be doing short form as well. So tons of new changes, but they're all going to be positive changes that just equate to more content on the feed for everybody to consume. And we'll be kicking it out with AZ Thomas starting tonight.
I'm excited to watch that one because I've watched a bunch of Membu and Taylor, but Thomas, all I've seen from him is Senior Bowl clips. So I'll be excited to watch that one. That one drops tonight, you said?
Yeah, it's out right
So
now.
by the time you're watching this,
yes, it'll be
audience
out
will
as
already
well.
be out.
Yep,
Okay.
absolutely. Yep.
Sweet, man.
Yep.
Gotta check it out.
The Senior Bowl was tough for him. I'll be honest. The first day of Senior Bowl, he gave up some big
some of those
plays.
speed guys kind of got him a little bit. So I was hoping to see a little bit some better reps because I was like, oh no.
Yeah, and
that
then
that 4.5840 kind of showed up in the Senior Bowl clips.
It did at the first day of Senior Bowl, and then the second and third day in the game, it got a little bit better, and he definitely improved. Mostly improved in the second and third days of practice. I tried to add a lot of clips of press man coverage in the film review because I wanted to do the traits that I think are most going to translate for him at the NFL level. And anytime he dropped back in zone, you'll see in one of the clips, it was not always great. So press man corner AZ Thomas, I'm excited for him. And keeping the content rolling at Jet Nation.
Remember, guys, that is Jet Nation on Twitter and YouTube. You can find that stuff. And we'll be talking to you guys next week. Go Jets.